The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tech Geek webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is key to enhance our skills and grow us as a professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is product management, lessons from the other side. And for today's webinar, we have Mr. Gaurav Marwaha. He is Associate Vice President at Nucleus Software Export Limited. Gaurav has more than 14 years of rich experience in software design and architecture, with a strong focus on products and product development. He has played multiple roles of developer, scrum master, product manager, and product architecture for different teams and is well versed with lean agile methodologies. He has been part of entire product life cycle from concept to EOL and maintenance, immediately aligned to business, technology, people and process goals of an organization to start delivering at high speed. He has worked on complicated system design problem for enterprise web-based products, which includes integration, batch, reporting, analytics, and rule engine. So without any further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you. Good evening, all of you. My name is Gaurav. I'll start with presentation. So, a quick background of what I do at Nucleus. I currently head the engineering team for one of the flagship products on loan origination. Additionally, I also work with technology teams which deliver a reusable product framework. And I'm passionate about products, technology, usability. I've worked with different product teams and I can work with them to groom and mentor them, right from freshers to senior level people. I've worked in multiple technologies and there's a link to my LinkedIn profile. As an introduction, and at any time that you face a lag or something and you can raise the questions through chat, I think the organizers will take a look at that. But we are on slide 3, introduction. So this presentation is about software products, and since I had an opportunity to work with some of very brilliant minds out of software development and software products, so we have sort of worked across different domains, and I wanted to bring out the learning that I had working with these people, the things that worked and the things did not work. Of course, this is not an attempt to bring out the theoretical concepts of product management, and there are well-written books on that which can be followed. So here's a quick table of contents. We'll start with some definitions and stakeholders for a product. Then we'll go into the product lifecycle and its correlation with stakeholders. And then at the end are some of the things that worked in different product teams. I'll start with the definition. So to define, basically we have a product and the management is the smaller piece. A lot of times we've seen that people assume that knowing theoretical product management can help managing the product, but it's more about the product than it's about the management. So knowing a product is essential to manage it. If we do not know the product, then there's no management. There is no general principle which applies to different products. Of course, every product is unique and it has its own set of customers. There may be cross-cutting concerns, but at product managers level and at ownership level, we have to look at the product as one, and we have to know its features. There's a definition from Wikipedia which is there. Of course, we can probably skip it. Here are some of the key stakeholders that we have for a product manager. There are customers, prospects, and probably it also relates to sales on the top left side. And just below it is competitors, Then, of course, there's markets and marketing teams. Then comes senior leadership team of the product company, the CFO office, and engineering and technology teams. So product is built for these stakeholders, and each of them provides some valuable feedback to product teams at various stages of product development. And some of the feedback that they provide is outlined in this slide. So customers bring back, feedback on products and features and ideas from their needs. So important is that customer will always talk about their needs, which is more sort of per customer. Competitors will feed into product and innovation strategy teams if we are able to get a hold of competitor software, or if we get a hold of what they are doing, then they will feed into our product innovation and strategy teams. Senior leadership team will be, they'll bring in passion, they'll bring in their vision, strategy to product teams. And on the right side, technology and engineering teams will drive and own the, the choice of technology platforms. This is very important in today's world, because the technology that we choose is long-lasting, and our scalability and then extensibility, these features will depend on the technology that we choose. And marketing teams provide research and also provide inputs on different geographies. Of course, there's the CFO office, which normally checks on the metrics and the effectiveness of the profitability of a product. So overall, what we can conclude is that each stakeholder brings some unique and their share of feedback or inputs to the product manager. But it is important for the product manager to understand the needs of each stakeholder and then assess on case-by-case basis. And this may again be based on which stage the product is in its life cycle. And of course, the product managers I have seen can sway in one direction, because some of the people that are listed here, or the roles that are listed here, they carry a lot of weight in organizations, and they have a tendency, or they can pressurize to sway roadmaps or get undue attention because of the weight that they carry. I'll move to the next slide. Now, this is also standard process. Basically, product development is a gated process. We all know. From the idea or the concept gate to technology gate, and then availability, or it's built and then availability, launch, and end of life. Most of the products follow this gated approach. And a lot of times, while we do POCs, the technology teams are not involved. And what happens is that undeliverable products or something which cannot be created is promised. Of course, this gated process is not applicable to an early stage product company, because the early stage product companies may not have a lot of processes around product development. They have one product which they are trying to develop. So a lot of these gates may not exist for them. But for all stable and mature product companies, most of us know that we go through these gates as checkpoints or as validators of whether what we are doing is right or not. The slide talks about the product development, product life cycle. This is standard life cycle which starts with planning and then to production. And we have concept, development, implementation, and termination phases. Most of the products follow this life cycle, and this is the textbook life cycle. What is important to note is that we have to prioritize and make sure that our backlog is in the right shape, especially at boundaries. Because once we roll into implementation, there is a high degree of probability that we will face issues, because suddenly the customers will kick in, and once customers come in, they will drive roadmaps towards them. So while planning and concept planning stages or concept development stages are more inward facing, implementation is outward facing. And at this stage is when we sort of go through a little bit of tussle. So in the next slide, I am talking about the various stakeholders that we looked at and at which stage they contribute. So if you look at phase 1, we have primarily, the senior leadership and technology teams which play a role when we are conceptualizing or, talking about the idea, doing a POC. Of course, the senior leadership team will play a crucial role throughout the life cycle. And in phase 2, we have the CFO office, technology team, and the leadership team. Whereas in phase 3, we have introduction of customers and marketing and competitors. Even though we can track competitors during development, but building a product to match competitors is not probably the right way, and we'll always keep following the competitor. It's good to build what you have in your roadmap and then start tracking competition once we have customers. So in this manner, if you see, there's engineering, technology, customers, prospects, and they will always come with their business. So they tend to pull roadmaps. Post-release, customers can add a lot of value if we involve them properly in roadmap building exercise. But they can also give a lot of tend to pull the product features to what they need. And of course, there are competitors and marketing teams, which I have described at the bottom, where they can have positive impact, or we can get swayed completely by competition and try to track competition rather than our own roadmaps. In the next slide, I'm just trying to differentiate between enterprise products and B2C products. So a lot of times also I have seen that we tend to use a lot of B2C products which have matured a lot from the early days of Yahoo and Hotmail to what we see today. And a lot of features from B2C products like Hotmail, Yahoo, Facebook, Twitter have come into enterprise world. But we cannot copy them as is. We need to look at the patterns in which the enterprise users access and use enterprise products vis-a-vis the access and use of products by B2C or consumer means. Of course, one of the critical but subtle factors is that enterprise users use a software product to get their work done. And mostly people don't like to work. Contrarily, when we shop or we browse Facebook, it's not mostly termed as work. So we have to sort of look at usability patterns so that they are able to do their job faster. We have to look at architectural patterns in a way that software is designed so that the end users are able to do their job faster and they see value. We'll get into each sort of learning or a small noting that I want to present as part of this presentation now. So the first thing, of course, it's a quote from Shakespeare's, I think, Comedy of Errors. I understand the not. But what I want to say is that first and foremost that each product manager must ensure is that he or she understands what the product does. Each product is different, and there are good and bad things for the users that it gets on board. And one of the things that I saw was while working on a medical imaging software, a senior member once suggested that why don't we make it web-based? We did not bother to see that the size of data for some of these images is humongous, for 1 GB and more for cardio images that are sent to desktops where it is viewed. And of course, the kind of rasterizing or the way the physician sees this and the detail to which he has to go is large. So understanding the product is a must. Committing on things that are not possible because and by understanding, not only commitment on features, but commitment on technology, commitment on limitations by technology is a must. What cannot be done by the technology? If we are on laggard technology and the product is in sustenance mode, then we should not promise, something which is new, like mobility and things like that. We have to be careful. And knowing the product is a must. Of course, the second is that we should be aware of our customers. And in the enterprise world, finally, they are people who pay for licenses, support, and change requests. Product managers have to know their customers, and I think a lot of you would already know persona building exercises are done so that product managers can create personas for customers and get them ingrained into development team set. We were working on a geo-risk product, and we always assume that we will either upload or look at the risk scores created based on the address or of a particular location. Whereas geo-risk profiling is one of the activity that an underwriter in a bank does. So they would like to combine this score with the overall workflow so that there's no data entry, because each data entry adds to cost of the bank, and someone human doing that data entry would have added to cost, where if we knew the customers, which was underwriters, he would have probably just created a service and added it to their already existing financial scorecards. Of course, and then there's market, and in a lot of enterprise products, market brings in laws, it brings in economic environment, it brings in lingo and host of other challenges for the product manager. Knowledge of trends and business challenges in the market is essential when we go and sell in that or in a particular market. So again, an example that I went through was that in US, it is mandated that we have to preserve medical records of a person for X number of years. Whereas in India, there's no such law. And in US, you'll find a lot of companies provide archival and solution and storage and retrieval of these medical records, which are digitized, and there's a standard around it. When we sell this to a hospital in India, they already have a large capex, and they don't factor in the cost because of competition of the storage of medical records. Therefore, it's not a good deal for them. Similarly, if you look at banking side, the Islamic laws, they don't allow people to take loans and then pay interest on them. But it's not that Islamic banks don't function; they just call it something else. So, if we are demoing it to someone in a market, we have to use the right lingo. We have to use the right sort of words in talking to them. So knowing the market is important. Similarly, the product manager, as we saw, is at the center of most of the communication that will happen. And we can use product owner or manager, at least for this discussion. So he or she is at the center of all communication that happens with key stakeholders. One of the most important abilities to piece things together and to be able to prioritize. We were working on a desktop mapping product, and we falsely assumed that Google is a competitor, whereas the bigger picture is that we were not even selling to consumer mapping world. And knowing the fact that we are not in that space, we reduced the number of features that we had to do, and we could launch a web-based front to that product, which revitalized it pretty faster. So the key point is that the right feature at the right time so that it leads to returns which are traceable and measurable. If you're continuously building features and product managers are not able to put traceable returns on them, then we may get into a loop of being a feature creep where we continuously add features and to no end actually. Of course, then priorities. So we talked about this briefly, but customers and sales teams are usually the heavyweights. So once we get into implementation, in my experience, customers and sales teams, they tend to pull the product roadmaps. And they do this because both have personal goals, and it's not against them, but finally they are the consumers or buyers of this product, and they make sure that there's market and the money wheels are spinning. But one needs to be careful to give the right weightage. And an example is that while working on a product team, we soon realized that each new sales demo brought in some superficial features which we add to win deals, maybe because of market customization, maybe it's just pure demo, maybe it's expectation as part of RFP case study which is shared. And realization came because even if we have to have 50% of such deals which materialize, what will be the impact on the agreed product roadmap? How much will we have to differ, or will it be same? So another example is that customers at a large bank, they wanted their features to be built as part of the product. And being a large bank, they carried weight. And the overall goal is to reduce their customization cost so that their features come as part of the product. So these are ways or means in which we need to prioritize, and we need to make sure that we are on the right path. Now, technology is a key driver to business today. I mean, it's gone are days when technology or architecture of product was considered as later on first requirement was done. We are talking about evolutionary architecture. We are talking about agile principles where things work together. So the separation between technical and functional features is also getting pretty thin. Analytic, dashboarding, and query, data dumps, these have become standard features of products, whereas when probably some time ago we had products which used to do analytics, we had products which had fancy dashboards, and we always assumed that data will always flow to a data mart and data warehouse, and then analytic will be run on it. On the other hand, I see product managers are averse to learning technology. I mean, whereas it is pretty fancy tool. We were in a discussion, and we were talking about workflows, and the bank's IT team and their business team was pretty comfortable with swim lanes, subflows, activities, and which is standard business process notation or definition language, which our product managers were not so comfortable in, and it created a gap. In another instance, I saw a product manager commit on reusable services without actually getting to know the security, auditability, and concurrency aspects, and the overall impact that these services will have on OLTP. On a note, service-oriented architecture and SaaS are probably one of the most wrongly or abused words in the product development space. We continuously talk about we're service-oriented, we have services. We need to understand, we need to look at the governance of these services, the auditability, the concurrency aspects of these services, and how they will be used before committing to these features which are on technology. Usability, I have seen, of course, a lot of people now talk about designing usability and upfront design and getting on people from this background. But it's not just forms, it's not just elegant looking forms. It is a good tool to have, and also it goes beyond forms, it goes into the user's tasks and how he does it and how best can we reduce his time. While we were developing a product, as an example, we went into implementation, and we sort of went into flat look and feel, which is, I think, the current, if you see, design sort of usage at multiple sites where we are getting into flag. Whereas we saw that this was resisted by the bank and they had valid reasons because they could not reinvest on training. They could not add more cost to what was already trained and give the training had been. Plus also the fact we had overlooked that enterprise products have to be branded as per the customer. Even though the product companies retain some branding, but the major color themes and logos, there's co-branding or branding aspects, and the new look and feel or the theme did not go well with the branding. So these are also aspects of usability that we tend to ignore. When we look at cloud solutions, product managers tend to ignore. I have seen that cloud solutions need to onboard customers. That is, the customer needs to be able to brand the cloud solution, the software as per his company or his need, his logo. So these features need to be provided. We all hate defects. I mean, so, but we have to realize that at least in the space that we are talking about, there are perceptions of how user, there are perceptions of how a user or the how system should behave versus how it is behaving. So it's a perception now. For just an example, someone can assume that you will be able to write comments on posts even on Facebook Messenger. That is my perception. Now, if I report a bug, will it be a bug? It may not be a bug, because my perception is wrong. But proving that the perception is wrong becomes tough in the enterprise world because the customer is on the other side, and telling him that your perception of the system is not right is another problem. So while working on a banking product, it was tested by a sizable quality team, and which included automation testing and using standard tools and execution of tests. We realized that once it went into UAT, customers raised more than 50 issues. And deeper scrutiny actually revealed that the internal test cases or test scenarios were not matching with the customer's test, which means that customer perceived a functionality to function in a different way than what we perceived and probably tested. So we have to keep this in mind. Performance is another area where we sort of, a lot of times I would say we abuse the system and we sort of use wrong notions. There are notions which are set in. We have to understand that performance involves CAPEX. It involves servers, it involves RAM, it involves better machines. So like defects, there is acceptable limit of performance and there is not acceptable limits of performance, and this may vary from customer to customer. And also we need to understand that performance is a feature. So while we are building a product, performance may be X, and when it is delivered, the performance may be 10X. And these improvements may come as features which are tracked in sprint boards and storyboards by the team. It is false or maybe not right to assume that from day one we will have a product which performs lightning super fast and everything will be done fast. Just like we track a minimum viable product, we have to track a minimum viable performance metric probably. So again, while working on a banking product, some very senior product managers, they compared the performance of page load time with that of social media applications. Now, this is done without understanding the infrastructure or backbone of these applications that we have. And another example is that at bank, users complain of slowness, and we did thorough analysis. We came out that we need to add some more cores to the CPU, which of course adds to cost, and the slowness became acceptable. So in my experience in the enterprise world, if there's one thing that people hate is that adding to non-budgeted or adding cost which is not budgeted. Of course, then we come to the hype versus reality thing. So there's a lot of hype around cloud, there's a lot of hype around analytic, but you should not have product managers who get swayed by the hype cycles, especially when we are managing stable build products. Jumping the gun without due research may be too expensive for a product team. Essentially, there are multiple examples, even failed attempts at building products by large corporations where they jumped into hype cycles. So analytic, big data, and cloud, are probably terms that so much marketing money has been pushed into these that probably even the milkmen would know, or would have heard about them by now. There's more than $1 billion probably that has been pushed into just cloud and cloud platform. But I've seen very senior product managers talk about analytic without actually studying quality of data. So any analysis that we need to do and statistic, will be as good as what is in your data. If someone has been punching in or has created that Abu Dhabi is in New York or New York is in Abu Dhabi, then once we lay out these customers on a map, we will see those results. So quality of data has a lot of importance. But the contrary pull that it has is that data is normally entered on cost basis. So the enterprises normally incur cost on data entry, and they want to reduce this cost so that overall their budgets or their operational costs remains low. So reducing operational cost by reducing cost of data entry and then expecting good quality of data that is entered is a push and pull, and we need to ensure that both have been addressed in some way. And likewise, we talk about cloud and its benefits and adapting the cloud, how it will reduce the overall capex to per month, operational cost, and a lot of benefits are given. But a lot of times we ignore the data residency aspects. For example, there are laws which says that customer data which is acquired in a country has to stay in that country. We cannot store that data in data centers outside, physically outside that country. And of course, security of data, and then whether we will be able to give downloadable copy of that data. So without knowing these concerns and knowing the boundaries which we operate, it will become sort of incorrect to talk about them. Agility, I've just added it here from process perspective. Agility is also probably one of the most misunderstood concepts in product development. We normally assume that because we are agile and because we are ready for change, anything can change at any time, and there's nothing fixed. Whereas this is not right. Sprints are time box, and sprints and release backlogs have to be constrained, or there should not be much change at least in them. Sprint, at least whatever is in the backlog, since it is time box, we cannot change things in the middle of a sprint. Whereas I have seen pretty senior product managers who talked about how being agile gives us the right to change the backlog easily. I have seen changes being pushed into development teams in the middle of a sprint. And while managed change is good, but unmanaged change will only lead to chaos. Product managers, should be able to define what is there in a release, and the definition of done should be in such a manner that it does not change. And while we say that every sprint will result in usable, business usable product is how we start. But on the other side, the definition of every sprint is done at start. So we have to ensure that we define usable business features which can be delivered in a sprint so that we can predict velocity, and it can be more predictable and measurable, as probably the senior management and CFO office would be looking for. The last slide that I have is that it's more that products are when we start, they are like small babies, and we have to ensure that we grow them and mature them into stable version. And initially, we feed them with some features and something, but getting them into customers and more and more sales and deals may impact roadmaps, and it's very, very critical to know which features to put in the roadmap and which features to push back for. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had for the deck today. I'm leaving it open for any questions that all of you have.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Gaurav, for such an insightful presentation on the product management. Let us quickly take up question now. I request you to please read out question before answering them so that all our users can get the commendable insight. Apart, I request all our participants, if they have any question related to the project management topic, they can share the same with us. We will help them to get answered from Mr. Gaurav. Gaurav, please visit to the question tab. There you can see question.
Sure. So one of the questions that I have is how should product managers sort of prioritize features or ideas? So I think it depends a lot on the product and the stage where it is how I can start with. But prioritization of features and ideas, for example, for a product that's early stage, you may try to get a new idea pretty quickly, very fast. But once a product is out to customers, a radically mind shift idea cannot be brought in at that stage because customers are already using it, and tangentially different product ideas may not fit into their normal usage. So priority is that at various stages of product, you give weightages to different people who give inputs. For example, at an implementation stage or an early adoption stage of a product, the customers who are adopting the product become the become the center, of attraction for everyone because they are an early adopter and they get what they want normally. So based on the life cycle stage of the product, we have to give weightages to different stakeholders and take their feedback and then probably come up with a score or a way in which we can prioritize this. This is how I can answer. The second, does that answer your question? Or, I'll move on to the second question. The second question is, how does documentation fit into the product life cycle? So, I mean, documentation is a key piece is how I would say, but how much is depends on the gates that you adopt. So, for example, if we go back to the gated slide, if we go back to the slide where product management is a gated process, and each gate would add some document to the entire product life cycle. So the idea gate would normally create an idea or concept document or high-level feature document. Whereas when we get to the technology gate, we would have some POC with some design or concept or how it works. So each gate that you adopt, and of course there may be more gates, there may be a quality gate, there may be a performance gate. I mean, it depends on the product and how, because a stable product, for example, like we all use PowerPoint, for example, that is being used to do this demo. Now that product is so stable, it's been there in the market for multiple years. It will have multiple gates, and there may be one gate for internationalization where it's checked for Japanese, Chinese, and things like that. So the documents that are produced is it depends on the number of gates that we have, and each gate would have its own inputs and outputs. The next question that has come is, can a product be sold out as configuration, whereas it is customization internally? So I'm not sure I get this question. Probably if you can explain it a little better, but product be sold out as what I understand is, can a product be sold out as a configurable thing, whereas the feature is delivered as a customization? So I would not get into sales, but sales is a little how should I say? It's a little tricky business on how and what is promised and who promises what, and it's a different ballgame. So I would like to stay away. But if you have created a feature which is customizable, then it is customization. Whereas if you have created something which is configurable, then you configure it, and the more configuration sort of features that you add, the more customers you'll be able to support easily. The more customizations, on the contrary, that you add, you'll be able to support less customers. The next question that I see here is how much time is usually spent in preparing PRD, MRD? So I again would not know. It depends on company to company, and it may be a lot of your time, or it may be a little more, and it also depends on the gates and their exit criteria. So how much time I cannot say, I'm sorry, right now. Then the next question is, Gaurav, you have talked about stakeholder management at the beginning of the phase, but what I believe is stakeholder management is throughout the product lifecycle and is not one time. Okay, so if we go back, stakeholder management is throughout the lifecycle. Here, if you see this slide, then there are stakeholders who play a role in various parts of the product lifecycle, and you're absolutely right. I'm sorry if I could not convey it earlier, but stakeholder management is throughout product lifecycle. It's just that which stakeholder you manage at which stage. Then I don't think. Please suggest any good to prioritize. Is it okay? There's a question from Achal which says, if suppose product manager identified some already implemented feature, is it not required or right that he can handle this situation or remove this feature? Achal, I'm sorry, I did not get your question. I'll try to answer it best. So if suppose product manager has identified some already implemented feature, it is not right, then he should handle this situation. So probably yes. I'll move on to the next because I don't understand this one. I'm sorry, maybe you can write it again. Please suggest any good tool for product managers to manage the release. Okay, there are a lot of tools. I've seen people use just Excel also. I mean, as a start, which is paid, but it's good. And people have effectively used tools like Jira. Then I think there's a paid tool which was earlier called Rally. That is also there. So the tool is only secondary to management of the backlog. The tool helps you. It cannot replace you. Is how you should see it. So if you know how to manage the backlog, then the tool will only help you in managing the backlog. So it's up to you where you are comfortable. And Praveen asked me, is it required to get exposure from Gartner, and product management is required to drive it? So I'm not sure. I mean, Gartner is an analyst firm which tracks markets and tries to predict what will happen next. And it does reports which do that. I mean, they have very, very seasoned and experienced people who track markets, and also they track customer segments, different things. So Gartner exposure is good, but it may depend on products. If the product is in a space where Gartner does not track it, for example. So Gartner, for example, may not track a lot of things that happen in India. There's a separate analyst firm like IBS or something. Then following them is good, but it's not required in my view. So this is the list of questions I have till now. There's another one which is, I want to know how product managers should handle the situation for removing this wrong or okay. So yeah, so great question, Achal. And what I would say is that if you inherit a product that has features that you want to do away with, I mean, they are bitter pills that probably, in my opinion, you need to see if customers are using them. If they are not, then of course it's easy to do away with them. But when we, in my experience, again, maybe limited, when we sell software products, we sell bill of material which has sometimes got a feature list. And if customer has paid for this feature and we remove it, then probably we need to do a bargain of give and take. What is new that is coming in, and then why? Of course, if the product is still under development, and if you feel that this feature is done in a wrong fashion or it needs to be done again, then it can be done. It's only which stakeholder that you have to convince. Once it's out in implementation, and the convincing has to be done for customers. Once it's inward, then inward in company customers have to be sort of convinced. Yeah, so I don't have, I think this was the last.
I think, Gaurav, that's all we had from question and answer round. Till now we have got as many questions. So I think we should wind it up, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I request all our participants, if they have any question related to the topic, they can visit our website, that is techgeek.com, and they can post their any query there on Gaurav page, right? So meanwhile, I request Gaurav also to please visit our website in a day or two. If you find any question related to your to the webinar, please do answer them.
Sure.
Right. So I'm really thankful to Gaurav for taking up so many questions and conducting this webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on our website, that is techgeek.com, by tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you.